What if the most formidable weapon in Renaissance Italy wasn't a sword, but a single, colorless drop? In an age of shifting allegiances and brutal ambition, one family rose to dominate Rome: the Borgias. Led by the charismatic Pope Alexander VI and his ruthless children, Cesare and Lucrezia, their name became synonymous with power, wealth, and a dark, persistent rumor. This was the legend of Cantarella, a secret, untraceable substance said to be their instrument of choice for eliminating cardinals, rivals, and anyone who stood in their way. Were the lavish banquets held in the Vatican halls truly traps, where a golden chalice could seal a guest's fate? Or was this tale of a family of poisoners a masterful piece of political propaganda, crafted by their enemies to dismantle their legacy? We journey back to the heart of 15th century Italy to unravel the threads of history and myth. We will investigate the science, the politics, and the paranoia to ask the ultimate question: was Cantarella the deadliest secret of the Renaissance, or its most enduring lie? The truth is hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncorked. The story of the Borgias is not one of Roman antiquity, but of foreign ambition grafted onto the heart of Italy. They were the Borgias, a family of minor nobility from Valencia, in the Kingdom of Aragon. Their ascent began with Alonso de Borgia, a master of canon law who tirelessly served King Alfonso X of Aragon, and who, through shrewd diplomacy and unwavering loyalty, became Pope Calixtus III in 1455. It was he who laid the foundation, elevating his nephew, Rodrigo Borgia, to the rank of cardinal at a startlingly young age. Rodrigo was the true architect of the dynasty. A man of insatiable appetites for power, wealth, and women, Rodrigo possessed a magnetic charisma that both captivated and terrified his contemporaries. Charming, intelligent, and utterly ruthless, he navigated the treacherous currents of the Roman Curia for decades, amassing immense wealth and influence. He was an outsider, a Catalan, viewed with suspicion and envy by the powerful Italian families like the Orsini and the Colonna. But his ambition was boundless. He saw the papacy not just as a spiritual office, but as a throne for a new Italian kingdom, ruled by his family. When Pope Innocent VIII died in the sweltering July of 1492, Rodrigo unleashed his master plan. The papal conclave became his battlefield. Against formidable rivals like Cardinal Giuliano della Rovere, Rodrigo deployed his most potent weapon: his vast fortune. Rumors flew of mule trains laden with silver dispatched to the palaces of wavering cardinals, of promises of lucrative bishoprics and abbeys whispered in shadowed corridors. Through this blatant and breathtaking campaign of simony, he outmaneuvered his rivals. On August 26, 1492, he ascended the throne as Pope Alexander VI. The Spanish bull, a symbol of power and virility taken from his family's coat of arms, had finally arrived. With golden guile, were no longer just the offspring of a cardinal. They were the princes and princesses of a new, formidable power, their futures now instruments of statecraft. The Italian peninsula held its breath, a mixture of awe and terror, waiting to see what this audacious foreign dynasty would do next. The golden age of the Borgias had begun, casting a long, dark shadow over the Renaissance. As Pope Alexander VI, Rodrigo Borgia moved swiftly to consolidate his power, transforming the papacy into a family enterprise. Nepotism was common, but Alexander practiced it on an unprecedented scale. His beloved son Giovanni was made Duke of Gandia and Gonfalonier of the Church. His teenage daughter Lucrezia became a valuable pawn in a series of strategic marriages designed to forge alliances. And his most formidable child, Cesare, was reluctantly made a cardinal, a prince of the church chafing in his crimson robes, his martial ambitions temporarily curbed. The Vatican became their fortress and their court, but with great power came great peril. The established Roman barons, whom the Borgias had displaced, seethed with resentment. The Sforza family of Milan, the Medici of Florence, and the Kingdom of Naples all viewed the Spanish upstarts with hostility. Whispers of corruption, debauchery, and illegitimate children, all true, were amplified by their enemies into monstrous legends. Every sudden ailment, every unexpected political reversal, fueled a growing paranoia within the apostolic palace. The Borgias felt besieged. They trusted few outside their tight-knit family circle, and even within it, rivalries simmered. This atmosphere of constant threat created a need for absolute loyalty, and a means to deal with enemies decisively and discreetly. Power had to be protected, not just with armies and alliances, but in the quiet corridors and at the lavish dinner tables where plots were hatched. The papacy of Alexander VI was a glittering affair, but beneath the gold and silk lay a foundation of fear. It was a court where a friendly smile could hide a fatal design, and a shared cup of wine could seal a political doom. In an age poised between medieval superstition and Renaissance science, the line between chemist and alchemist was blurred. For the powerful, this ambiguity offered a unique tool, the art of the apothecary, perfected for political ends. This is the world that likely gave birth to the legend of Cantarella. The name itself is melodious, almost whimsical, masking a terrifying purpose. While its exact formula remains a mystery, historians speculate it was a sophisticated compound based on arsenic. Arsenic was well known in the 15th century as inheritance powder for its colorless, odorless, and tasteless properties, making it the perfect agent for a discreet resolution. It could mimic the symptoms of common ailments like dysentery or fever, allowing a convenient passing to be attributed to natural causes. The genius of the Borgia legend lies in the refinement of this process. Cantarella was not crude rat poison, it was supposedly an art form. Rumors claimed it was a crystalline powder derived from treating arsenic with the of specific animals, a process steeped in alchemical ritual to enhance its potency. It could be prepared as a clear liquid, easily mixed with wine, or as a fine dust, lightly sprinkled on a piece of fruit. The Borgias may not have invented the method, but their name became inextricably linked with its perfection. The creation of such a substance would have required a secret laboratory, a trusted alchemist, and absolute discretion. It was the ultimate weapon for a paranoid dynasty, a way to remove a rival without a single sword being drawn. Cantarella became the physical manifestation of Borgia power, silent, invisible, and absolute. The Borgia banquets became legendary throughout Italy, and not merely for their opulence. They were theatrical productions of power, where guests were treated to the finest foods, entertained by the most talented musicians, and charmed by their charismatic hosts, Pope Alexander and his children. Yet, beneath this veneer of hospitality, a chilling reputation grew. These gatherings, it was whispered, were hunting grounds. The prey were wealthy cardinals with fortunes to be seized, or political rivals whose influence had grown too strong. The method was deceptively simple. A special chalice, a carefully chosen piece of fruit, or a dedicated bottle of wine for the guest of honor. The stories, magnified by chroniclers like Johann Burchard and Francesco Guicciardini, paint a terrifying picture. A cardinal would be invited to a lavish feast, feel a sudden malaise, and retire to his bed, only to succumb to a swift and violent illness within days. His properties and wealth would then be absorbed by the papal treasury, further enriching the Borgias. Was every such incident an act of foul play? Unlikely. Rome was an unsanitary city, and sudden ailments were common. But the frequency with which the Borgias' opponents and wealthy prelates met untimely ends after dining with them created a powerful and enduring narrative. The legend was more potent than the reality. The fear of Cantarella became a weapon in itself. An invitation to a Borgia banquet was an honor one could not refuse, but an event one might not survive. The golden chalices and silver platters of the apostolic palace became symbols not of communion, but of a cold, calculated betrayal, served with a smile. Of all the alleged victims of Cantarella, none illustrates the Borgia method better than the case of Cardinal Giovanni Battista Orsini. The Orsini were a powerful Roman family, ancient rivals of the Borgias, who had recently conspired against Cesare. In early 1503, after a false reconciliation, Cesare invited the cardinal to the Vatican for a discussion. It was a trap. Upon arrival, Orsini was seized and thrown into the dungeons of Castel Sant'Angelo. His possessions were immediately confiscated. For 11 days, the world heard nothing. His mother sent food to the fortress, which to prove it was not tampered with. A masterful stroke of psychological theater. Then, on the 12th day, it was announced that Cardinal Orsini had passed away in his cell, officially from a terrible fever. No one believed it. The timing was too perfect, the motive too clear. The consensus on the streets of Rome was that a chalice of Cantarella-laced wine had been delivered to his cell, ending the threat of the Orsini clan once and for all. The official record states one thing, the legend screams another. The case of Cardinal Orsini became the poster child for Borgia treachery. It demonstrated their audacity, their contempt for the nobility, and their preferred tool of statecraft. There was no public trial, no messy spectacle. Just a quiet invitation, a brief imprisonment, and a convenient passing. The empty chalice in the cardinal's cell, whether real or imagined by chroniclers, stands as the ultimate symbol of the Borgia legacy, a dynasty that ruled through fear, where allegiance was conditional and a single drink could be the last. No figure in the Borgia saga is more enigmatic than Lucrezia. Was she the incestuous, treacherous woman of legend? Whispered to share a bed with both her father and brother, personally serving tainted wine to her father's guests? Or was she merely a pawn in the vast dynastic ambitions of her father and brother, her now infamous reputation a smear tactic crafted by their enemies? History presents a complex portrait. Thrice married for political advantage, Lucrezia's unions were treated as key political tools. Her first marriage to Giovanni Sforza was annulled on the publicly humiliating and likely false grounds of his impotence when he was no longer useful. Her second husband, Alfonso of Aragon, was ambushed on the steps of St. Peter's in July 1500. Though he survived the attack, he was later strangled in his sickbed, an act widely attributed to Cesare's cold calculus, executed by his enforcer, Michelato Corella. Her apparent, deep grief over Alfonso's murder suggests a genuine turning point. Yet, after leaving the viper's nest of Rome for the court of Ferrara as the wife of Alfonso d'Este, Lucrezia cultivated a new persona. She became a respected and pious duchess, a patron of the arts, drawing luminaries like the poet Pietro Bembo into her orbit and presiding over one of the most brilliant courts of the Renaissance. This dramatic transformation complicates the narrative. Was her time in Ferrara a calculated performance, or the emergence of her true self, finally free from the suffocating influence of her family? The chronicles of her enemies paint a monstrous picture, but the records from Ferrara speak of a capable and beloved ruler. The truth of Lucrezia Borgia may lie somewhere in the shadows between the gilded cage of her youth and the ducal throne of her maturity, forever obscured by centuries of speculation and propaganda. Her story is a stark reminder that in the world of the Borgias, a woman's reputation was just another battlefield. For a decade, the Borgias seemed invincible, their power absolute. But their reign, built on ambition and papal authority, was as fragile as a human life. The end came swiftly and unexpectedly. In the sweltering heat of August 1503, both Pope Alexander VI and his son Cesare fell gravely ill after a dinner hosted by Cardinal Adriano da Corneto. The Pope, aged 72, succumbed within days, his life ending on August 18th. His passing was grotesque, his body reportedly swelling and turning black with terrifying speed, the symptoms fueling immediate speculation of a familiar cause. Had the Borgias, in a final, tragic irony, accidentally consumed their own special brew intended for a cardinal? Or was it the more mundane, yet equally lethal, Roman scourge of malaria? We may never know for certain. While his father's body was hastily interred, Cesare was struck down by a severe illness, fighting for his own life, his legendary constitution racked by a burning fever. Famously, he was said to have been submerged in ice water to survive. He was incapacitated at the most critical moment imaginable. Without the protection of the papacy, his carefully constructed state in the Romagna crumbled. His enemies, led by the vengeful Giuliano della Rovere, circled like vultures. Della Rovere, becoming the fearsome Pope Julius II, and harboring a deep, personal hatred for the Borgia name, made it his first order of business to dismantle Cesare's every achievement. Stripped of his lands, his armies, and his papal backing, Cesare became a wanderer, a prisoner, and ultimately, a soldier for hire. The man who had been the inspiration for Machiavelli's prince, the master of his own destiny, met his end on a muddy battlefield near Viana, Spain, on March 12, 1507. The house of Borgia, which had soared so high, had fallen completely, its power extinguished as quickly as a candle in the wind. With the Borgias vanquished, their history was left to be written by their victors. And those victors, particularly Pope Julius II, were masters of propaganda. In the cutthroat world of Renaissance Italy, character assassination was a potent political weapon, and the Borgias provided the perfect canvas. Pamphlets, hostile chronicles, and diplomatic dispatches began to circulate, painting a picture of a family not just ambitious, but monstrous. The powerful narrative they wove was one of unholy depravity, where every banquet was a potential trap, and every chalice a vessel of doom. The legend of Cantarella was central to this. It transformed their political machinations into something more sinister, more theatrical. It was a story far too compelling to question. Became a powerful metaphor for their perceived corruption, their foreignness, their subversion of the natural order. Their Spanish heritage was used against them, casting them as outsiders in Rome. Rumors that had been whispered during their reign were now shouted from the rooftops, and crucially, written down for posterity. The Black Legend was truly born a toxic inheritance that would define the Borgia name for centuries. It served the political purpose of their successors perfectly, justifying their own actions by magnifying the alleged sins of their predecessors. Separating the real crimes of the Borgias from the fabricated ones becomes the central challenge for any historian. The Cantarella story was not just a rumor. It was a carefully constructed political weapon that proved more lasting than any army. Beyond the legend and propaganda, a scientific question persists. Could Cantarella have been real? If so, what was it? While the idea of a secret family formula is tantalizing, the most likely candidate is far more common. Arsenic trioxide. Known for centuries as the inheritance powder, arsenic was the substance of choice for clandestine affairs in the Renaissance. A colorless powder with little taste, it could be easily mixed into food or wine. Imagine the scene: a lavish Vatican banquet where a guest raises a golden chalice, unaware that Pope Alexander VI himself may have overseen its preparation. The key symptoms described in chronicles of alleged Borgia victims: severe gastric dislodge, agonizing wasting away, aura remarkably consistent with chronic or acute arsenic poisoning. Who died in the Castel Sant'Angelo in 1503, mirrors these accounts perfectly. His rapid decline fueling the dark rumors. Other theories exist. Some suggest cantharidin, derived from the blister beetle, which is highly toxic. Others point to concoctions of botanical extracts from plants like hemlock or aconite. Would certainly have had the knowledge and means to procure or create such compounds, tapping into a shadowy world where alchemy and medicine intertwined. However, the legend of Cantarella insists on its uniqueness, its supposed untraceable nature. In an age before modern toxicology, any substance that mimicked the symptoms of common ailments like dysentery or cholera would have seemed like a magical, undetectable tool. Without physical evidence exhumed remains that could be tested, which is nearly impossible after 500 years. The exact composition of Cantarella remains in the realm of speculation. The true terror of the Borgias was not just chemical, but psychological. Could this be the secret, that Cantarella wasn't a single substance, but a name given to a method, a terrifying reputation that made the simple, brutal chemistry of arsenic seem like a demonic, inescapable curse. 5 centuries have passed, yet the name Borgia still conjures images of decadence, intrigue, and betrayal. The black legend, fueled by the venom of their rivals, the Sforzas, the Della Riveres, has proven more resilient than any historical revision. They have become archetypes, immortalized in operas, novels, television series, and films. In popular culture, they are not historical figures, but shorthand for a family forever defined by ruthlessness and spectacular ambition. The potent legend has outlived the men and women themselves, eclipsing their actual political and cultural achievements. Pope Alexander I was a skilled diplomat who navigated treacherous political waters and brokered the 1494 Treaty of Tordesillas, dividing the known New World. Cesare was a brilliant military strategist whose campaigns in the Romagna were a blueprint for Machiavelli's prince. Lucrezia, once a political pawn, evolved into a celebrated Duchess of Ferrara and a sophisticated patron of the arts. Yet these facts are footnotes to the more sensational tales of incest and murder. Cantarella, whether real or imagined, is the perfect symbol of this legacy. A fine white powder, tasteless and untraceable, dissolving in a golden chalice. It represents the ultimate hidden threat, the betrayal that comes with a smile and a shared cup. The story of the Borgias forces us to confront a fundamental question about history. How much of what we know is fact? And how much is a story, shaped and retold by those with an agenda? From rival cardinals to later Protestant polemicists, many had reason to cast them as the ultimate villains. They may have been a family of great sinners, but they were also the victims of great slander. The truth is a complex mixture of both, forever obscured by the shadows of their reputation. Ultimately, the enduring power of the Borgia myth is a story not just of true history, but of the power of a story itself to define reality, long after the wine has been drunk and the chalice is empty.